Welcome to the Opportunity Podcast, where entrepreneurs come to learn from real buyers, sellers, and industry experts on the lesser-known growth opportunities to build their online business empires. We'll uncover tactics veteran online business entrepreneurs have used to build, buy, flip, and sell their way towards personal wealth. Sit back, grab a coffee, and get ready to uncover hidden growth secrets. The Opportunity Podcast starts now.
Welcome back to the Opportunity Podcast, your go-to resource for hidden growth opportunities throughout online business. For those familiar new to the podcast, I'm Sarah, and thanks for joining me today. In this episode, I'll be speaking to Kasey Luck, the founder and CEO of Luck & Co., a marketing agency specializing in innovative ways to boost e-commerce sales and customer retention. Kasey is a fountain of knowledge when it comes to all things related to e-commerce marketing, but today I'll be picking her brain about selling NFTs on Shopify. Kasey sheds a light on the various use cases for NFTs in e-commerce, the pros and cons of selling your own NFTs, as well as the best ways to implement them into your existing Shopify business. We also explore the ripple effects the introduction of NFTs may have on the future of e-commerce. If you want to learn how to take advantage of selling NFTs on Shopify before your competitors get in on the action, then you won't want to miss this interview. Let's get started. Hey everyone, welcome back to the Opportunity Podcast. I'm really excited to be joined by today's guest. We've got Kasey Luck on with us today. So Kasey, thanks so much for coming on. And where are you calling in from in the world right now?
Thank you so much for having me, Sarah. I'm so excited. I am calling in from the Bay Area, California, right south of San Francisco.
Oh, lovely. Okay. So I'm assuming you just are in the middle of like what should be perfect weather or something like that right now?
It's funny. I've said for a long time that the Bay Area weather is perfect, but I'm originally not from here. I'm from Russia. And so I went back at some point and then I lived in Europe too. And I experienced what real summer feels like. And the thing about the Bay Area is that it's always kind of nice, but it's never too cold or too warm. So I forgot what it's like to experience like actual summer when you can be in shorts and a tank top like in the night and just walk around all night long. And then I came back and I'm like, I see. So this is nice, but it also, the summer can be a little bit warmer.
Man, I don't know what it is. I mean, I think it's just because I've been here in Lisbon a couple of weeks and I was thinking it's going to be so warm. It's going to be so sunny. That's what everyone talks about when they, go to Lisbon. And just right now, that's not the case. Like it's finally starting to get sunny, but I'm so not at that like the idea of being in shorts just feels like it'll never happen. So I can feel your pain of, finally getting into warm enough weather where you get to enjoy warm nights and then you get back out of it and you're like, I miss that.
Yeah.
I don't know. I feel like that's exactly where I am right now.
Definitely not a pain for me. I'm very appreciative that we can have this nice weather. I know some parts of the world it's supposed to be spring, but it's still snowing. So I'm very lucky. All things considered, very good weather.
Okay, well, that's good. I can appreciate that. Well, cool. So, let's get into your journey, your past stories. So for those who don't know you, walk me through your entrepreneurial journey. Did you always know that you kind of want to end up in marketing and kind of the role you're in today?
Well, maybe I'll start from the current and then we can walk back a little bit. Now I run Luck & Co. agency. I founded the agency about 2.5 years ago. And we do email and SMS marketing for e-commerce companies. So we're very niche. We only work with e-commerce companies and we only do email and SMS marketing and that's it. And I really love that. I really love that it's so specific and so niche. I've always been doing marketing my whole career and I've always kind of been in email marketing too. I've kind of spread out from there into conversion rate optimization and even some social like paid advertising work with Facebook ads and Google ads and stuff like that. But I always came back to email marketing. But previously, I've mostly worked with B2B companies. And honestly, I was just kind of all over the place and I was doing all kinds of marketing for all kinds of companies. And I've always searched for this focus and this niche that would allow me to go deeper rather than wider, because that's something that I really appreciate. I know a little bit about all types of digital marketing, and I think it gives me very good context. but it feels really good to know exactly what I'm talking about when I talk about email marketing and SMS marketing, and to be able to come into a company, an e-commerce company, like look at their dashboard and know exactly what's going on and what are the levers I can pull to help them improve their performance. So that's something that I really like about where I am right now. And obviously, a focus like that really allowed me to also build a team, which is also something that I was aspiring to for a long time. So now I have an amazing, beautiful, incredible team of about 9 people. So that's really awesome too. But did I always know I wanted to do marketing? No. I studied journalism and business administration, so I double majored. And I didn't know that it would be so perfect for marketing, for work in marketing, but it turned out to be the perfect combination because in journalism, I really learned how to write. I really learned to listen to a lot of different sources and question everything, which is really handy in marketing when you look at one data set, but you're like, what else am I not seeing? What questions am I not asking? And I think a lot of that inquisitiveness and curiosity came from journalism. And then, of course, being modern journalism, we learn multimedia and video, and even social media, I think. So I don't know if it was meant to be, but somehow I ended up in marketing. And that was my first job out of college. And then I just followed with that. And I'm very happy with where I am right now.
That's awesome. I am curious, why start your own agency, instead of working for somebody else?
That's interesting because I thought about this question, but in my head, the question sounded like, why start an agency as opposed to working on your own? I didn't even compare that in my head to working for somebody else. Well, I mean, it's so trite to say, and I hate when other people say that, but I will have to say it myself too. I guess I am a very entrepreneurial soul, and I've always been that way. When I was 7 years, I was really into art when I was little, and I did painting and drawing. And when I was 7, I would sell my paintings to my grandparents.
That's awesome. Yeah, make money off of them. Don't just give that out for free.
Oh, yeah.
Value your work.
That is so funny now that I think back to it. It's hilarious, but they would come over to our apartment and I would put all of my recent paintings on the floor and I would let them choose. Then I would charge them for it. That's horrible.
That's so funny. And they actually bought it? They went through with it? That's so great.
Yeah, they're the best.
I don't know if my grandparents would have done that. They'd be like,
They're the best. Wow, I'm so lucky. But yeah, so I did things like that. And when I was in middle school, there are some, what are they called? Multi-level marketing companies that sell cosmetics to women, like Avon and Oriflame. They were really popular in Russia. And my grandmother was doing it. And I was in middle school and I started doing that. I don't know who I was selling that stuff to. I would talk to my classmates and do you want this lipstick and stuff like that. So I've always been hustling. And then when I graduated from college, I went and got a job, but it was still in a very entrepreneurial setting. My first job was doing event marketing at 500 Startups. 500 Startups is a fairly large VC firm and startup accelerator. So I was surrounded by tech entrepreneurs, people who started their startups, investors who are entrepreneurial themselves as well. I don't even have that in my mindset that I would work at a company for a long time. Not that, if it comes to it and it's great, sure. But I really enjoy, I don't know, I guess building my own path, whatever. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. I get so many people on. We're talking about how did you end up to where you are today? It usually relates back to that childhood self who felt very entrepreneurial, who was making deals even with their grandparents, hustling in school. It seems to be the common thread among so many entrepreneurs. So I'd say you're in good company. Understandably, with Luck & Co., you're specializing in e-commerce marketing. And I was curious, what is it about, e-commerce and niching down in e-com that really resonates with you?
Well, as I mentioned, I worked with a lot of different types of companies, a lot of B2B and SaaS, software as a service. So apps or online services or things like that. And then the first time, the first e-commerce project came my way through chance. I wasn't looking for it. Somebody just reached out to me and asked me to help with with email marketing for their e-commerce shop. It wasn't a very big shop, but it was also not too small. It was like medium sized. And I've never worked with e-commerce before, and I've never even worked with B2C. And I thought B2C marketing was like a completely different beast that I didn't know anything about. I was like so comfortable with my B2B marketing knowledge, but I knew email. So I looked at what they had. I asked them some questions, and then I put together an email program. And then it just worked so well and so quickly. And we saw incredible results from those email automations that I've set up for them. And I was kind of internally kind of searching for a niche at that point already. And I was like, this might be the niche that I'm looking for because, it just came so easily and it was so measurable. Something that I really love about email marketing in general is that it's a combination of creative work and analytical work. And I truly love both. And I think that I would truly be miserable if I only had to do one. My husband is a filmmaker, so it's like a fully creative field. And I get lost in things like that. When it's all just art and there's nothing concrete and there are no numbers, I get frustrated. But when it's all numbers, like I wouldn't be able to be an accountant because that's too much for me too. With marketing, you can work with creative, with visuals, understanding human psychology, and then you look at the data, at the analytics, and then you make decisions based on concrete numbers. And that combination is really fun. And then when you put e-commerce on top of that, when we compare that with some B2B marketing, for example, it's just like really fun creative because these companies sell real physical products that look fun and they usually have amazing photography. And we're working, I guess the audience as marketers we work with when it comes to e-commerce is also more relatable and more interesting. Because with B2B, it's like usually executives or people in certain roles that you sell to. With e-commerce, you sell to like regular humans. And depending on the brand, it could be moms or it could be like millennials who are into X, Y, and Z, or it could be athletes. Like that diversity of both products and audiences and creative. And then also just working with e-commerce companies, you normally all of the brands we work with, the founders, like still very big part of the company. And they usually started the brand because of something that they were really passionate about. So it's just really nice to work with companies that are started by passionate people who really believe in what they do, really put their heart into this physical product. And then when I was thinking about it, similarly to marketing, e-commerce is also a convergence of two fields because everything besides the actual product happens online. All of the marketing, like sales, all of that is online, but then you sell an actual physical product that people use in their physical real life. So I think that's kind of fun as well.
Yeah, I like that convergence between the kind of the art and science of things like marketing and e-com. I think it's easy to take it for granted that both sides of the coin exist since people tend to kind of go and congregate into one camp. There, I'm the data person or I'm the creative person. It's like, well, you kind of need to meet in the middle there and have a mix of both. So I see why you like that middle ground. Now, granted, you are helping a lot of people with their e-com businesses and sometimes namely on Shopify. I'm curious what kinds of mistakes you notice tend to trip entrepreneurs up the most when they're marketing on that platform.
Well, since I know email and SMS the most, I would say that there are two mistakes that are the opposite of each other, but that happen like at the same rate. E-commerce companies either don't start email marketing soon enough. I think brands are waking up to the importance of email marketing more these days because of all of the privacy changes with advertising and Facebook and things like that. It's becoming much harder to advertise, to do paid ads. And so SMS marketing comes to the forefront. So maybe people are making this mistake less these times. But when I started in e-commerce, like I would commonly talk to brands that are doing like 5 figures in revenue monthly, even sometimes 6 figures in monthly revenue from their store, and they don't have any email marketing program. And I'm like, guys, you're sitting on a gold mine. This is the most fun. I'm going to have such a great case study because we're just going to make a lot of money for you guys, just like from building this up from scratch because you have nothing. But then there are other companies who are just starting out, like brand new, and they like want to do email marketing right away. Like that's the opposite, but it's kind of too soon, because when you just start a new brand, the first thing that you should set up and you should be thinking about is your traffic. If you don't have traffic, you don't have anything else, and it is too soon to focus on email and SMS marketing if you don't have any idea of how you're going to drive traffic to your site. So it's not common that people find that middle ground of starting to focus on email marketing just in time. Some brands definitely do it, but generally they either start too soon or too late. And it's a big deal because email as a channel has the highest return on investment. There's this stat like for every dollar you spend on email marketing, you get $36 back. Everybody's sick of this stat because everybody throws it around all the time. But whether it's $36 or not, it is the highest return on investment channel. And if you have enough traffic and if your business is in a good position, you should definitely be doing email marketing and then soon enough SMS marketing as well, because it makes a huge difference for your company. And it's not only that you're making more revenue, you're making more profitable revenue, which is very important for e-commerce companies, especially if they're bootstrapped, because getting a customer right now is very expensive. You pay a lot of money to acquire a customer or even a website visitor on your site. But then most of the revenue you make from email is profitable because you've already acquired that person, then you got them on your list, and then all of the subsequent conversions that happen from that audience have virtually no acquisition cost attached to them. So it's just very profitable. So that's why it's so important.
I like that breakdown about really why email is relevant. I think it's worth getting into and reminding people because, I think it's so easy to get caught up, especially in e-com. I'm like, cool, I've got all these options on SMS. I've got all these options on, I'm going to advertise my business on TikTok and not overlook at what's tired, tested, and true and profitable, as you mentioned, when it comes to email. So I understand that you also work with SMS and there's like loads of opportunity there to make money. I do think that people overlook email more often than not. And it's a nice kind of come back, look at the basics here because there's some good stuff.
Yeah, it's definitely not the sexiest channel in most people's eyes. I think that email marketing is the sexiest marketing channel out there. But of course, for most people, TikTok and Instagram is a lot more fun, especially for owners and the founders who don't have any pre-existing experience with email marketing. That's not where they gravitate. So yeah, exactly what you're saying.
Yeah. You talk about a lot of different interesting topics. I found this cool video that you'd done on NFTs on Shopify on your YouTube channel. And thought it was a really interesting subject, not something that we get to talk about a lot, certainly not the relationship between the two. So I'd love to dig into that with you because I think you got some really cool stuff there.
Thank you. Yeah. YouTube channel is my little side project. In our agency, we work with bigger brands, 7 and 8 figure e-commerce brands, but we have smaller brands come to us all the time and ask for help. And we can help them at the moment. But I thought, I still want to help them because, as I said, I just have a lot of place in my heart for all of these founders who really believe in what they do and start these e-com brands with their products. So I thought, hey, I can create free content, put it on YouTube. People can watch, learn something. That's my way of helping those smaller brands. So that's what that YouTube channel is about. And one of the recent videos is about NFTs, and it's something that I'm super curious about. I wouldn't say passionate, but very, very curious. And I try to learn a lot about this topic. It's a big one. Where should we start?
Yeah, well, let's start off with the basics. I know NFTs feel like kind of like a buzzword and a lot of people know about it, but a lot of people don't. So for those who don't know, can you walk us through what an NFT is?
Yeah, I saw this meme somewhere, maybe on Twitter, that said non-fungible tokens is why we need marketers when things get named, because it's not a good name.
That is so funny.
Yeah. But essentially, non-fungible means like unique. Essentially, fungible means replicatable. Non-fungible means not replicatable, so unique. NFTs got a lot of buzz recently and, a very hyped topic. And when most people think about NFTs, they think about those cat memes or crypto punks, like those digital cards with some sort of art. And most people think that's all it is to NFTs. I understand why, because NFTs started as mostly collectibles, meaning It's pieces of digital art that are collectible and that derive a lot of their value from the fact that they are unique and they are collectible. And it's kind of like the more you collect or the cooler pieces you collect, the more they're worth. The more they're worth, the more you can sell them for. However, essentially, I'm not the most technical person, but the way I understand it is that an NFT is a digital asset. Could be a piece of art, but at its foundation, it's a contract. It's a contract, and you can write anything you want into that contract. And so when we talk about e-commerce and NFTs, like a brand can create an NFT that looks like a digital wearable, for example, like it's a little digital card, for lack of a better word, and there is an image of the jacket that you sell. But then in the contract of that NFT, it's also written that you, as the owner of this NFT, get access to X, Y, and Z. And like the cool thing about these NFTs is that they're verifiable through your wallet ownership, and that they're also resellable. This is something that's very unique to NFTs, because previously, you know how we have assets and property in the real world, and that property and those assets, like we can verify their ownership and we can easily resell those assets to each other,
Right.
or like generally in the open market. Online, that hasn't been the case since very recently. When you own something online, it's kind of like tricky. How do you verify that you like truly own something, like that same JPEG, for example? And then how do you really resell it to somebody else? So I think that's like big part of the innovation that came with NFTs, is that you can easily verify ownership of something through NFTs, and then you can resell it to other people. And like some of the coolest parts about reselling is that because it's a contract, and because all of this is on blockchain and it's automated, and like you don't need like a third party to like verify this, or like make sure that everything gets executed as it's supposed to be. It's like all in the contract and just happens automatically. When an NFT gets resold, typically, and that part is written in the contract, is that the original owner gets royalties, or in other words, gets a commission from every resale. So with those same collectibles, for example, the pieces of art that are valued at like millions of dollars right now, which is crazy. But the cool thing about that is, like I bought, let's say, a piece of digital art from you for $1,000, and then they keep it, and then you as the artist become more popular, and the value of this artwork that I bought from you grows in value. And then in a year, I sell it for $2,000. Normally, both in the physical world and in the digital world, I just pocket that $1,000. And then you, as the original artist, don't get anything else. You just sold that piece of art to me for $1,000. And then you don't know anything else that happens to that piece of art. With NFTs, you get a commission from that sale that I make of $2,000. And then if the new owner sells your piece of art for like $1 million in 5 years, you will get a commission as well as the artist. And that is like amazing and opens the door to so many possibilities.
Okay. I appreciate that picture, because I can see, especially as the creator economy grows, why the creator economy would be so closely tied to NFTs. It's giving creators that long-term play of really getting their money from their work. I did want to talk to you about the relationship between ecom and crypto, because, I think traditionally those have been two separate fields. So walk me through how NFTs are crossing over into the ecom world.
That's a question of utility of NFTs. This whole crypto and NFT world has a lot of new vocabulary. So if you hear listeners who are new to this topic, a lot of people typically talk about the utility of NFTs, and that's basically just how can you use this NFT besides looking at it, at this piece of digital art. And so there are a few examples of utility of NFTs when it comes to e-commerce. The first and probably the most popular one, and this is something that I'm most excited about and something that I'm starting to experiment with some of our brands, is using NFTs for loyalty and rewards for e-commerce companies. Because by now, most e-commerce brands, and not even e-commerce, just retailer brands too, they have some sort of loyalty and rewards program where for every dollar you spend, you get some points, and then like you collect those points and then you exchange them for a discount. NFT allow you to kind of take it to the next level. And instead of bothering with those points and like logins and passwords and stuff like that, you issue an NFT, and that NFT serves as the access pass to either special discounts, or you get a lifetime discount with this NFT that you buy, or like, again, like opportunities are limitless. You can bake in any type of reward you want into that NFT. You can have any sort of tiers. Something really cool that I saw Gap doing recently is basically they have multiple drops, like different collections of different NFTs that they issue over time. And then you need to collect certain types of NFTs. For example, you need to collect 4 from their basic collection and then 2 from their, let's just call it gold collection. They have better names for it. And then if you do, you get qualified for an epic NFT. And that epic NFT gives you like access to actual physical products or access to special events or anything like that. So NFTs allow you to do really creative stuff with loyalty and rewards to engage your customers in a new way. I mean, let's be honest about it. Let's just build hype around your brand because it's such a hype topic right now. But then I also love it because it really gives your customers and your shoppers freedom in terms of, like I'm a fan of this brand right now and I'm interested in their loyalty and rewards and I'm going to use it for my discounts. But in 3 years, I'm going to get tired of this brand. I'm not going to be a fan forever. And when I do, normally the scenario is that, like I was a loyal participant of your rewards program and now I have 1,000 points. I'm not interested in your brand anymore. I just lose those 1,000 points. End of story. Now I just resell that NFT to somebody else who is a new fan of this brand. I make some money, the brand makes some money, the new owner of the NFT gets all the perks that I collected, and then everybody is better off.
It's wild to think about the intersection between those two and how much that could change the landscape of e-commerce going into the future. Like, I think NFTs are kind of revolutionary themselves, but then you've got this, how is that going to affect all the industries that we've known and become comfortable with?
Something, I guess that was just one example of the utility. There are obviously more.
Yeah.
And then maybe one other notable one is, everybody's talking about the metaverse, which essentially is just like this digital universe where apparently we're all going to live in a few years. If listeners watched the movie Ready Player One, like something like that. But essentially, some of those universes, I think, like, for example, Roblox, they already have lots and lots of users, like, I think 50 million users by some of the last numbers. And in these digital worlds, you create an avatar and then you buy and exchange digital goods. So for e-commerce brands or for retailer brands in general, this is an opportunity to create digital wearables or like digital products in general that people can wear or use in the metaverse. And then kind of the demand for the digital products will also drive the demand for physical products. Because if I'm in this metaverse and I'm like hanging out with my friends in the metaverse and all of them are wearing these like super cool Nike sneakers that Nike created specifically for metaverse. And by the way, speaking of, Nike recently bought a brand that produces sneakers for metaverse. So they're really into this space. And then I go into the physical world and I'm like, Nike is all that's on my mind because that's all I see in the metaverse. I go and buy physical products from Nike too. So just kind of digital products driving the demand for physical products and physical products driving the demand for digital products is another avenue where NFTs are very applicable for retailer brands and e-commerce brands.
That's interesting. Yeah, I guess I hadn't heard about it from that perspective before, still like driving it back to the physical world. So let's talk about, those out there who are going, okay, this sounds saucy. I like this. I like taking my e-com business to the next level. So what would you say are the fundamentals that Shopify owners should have in place before they can successfully launch their own NFTs?
Well, Shopify now offers minting and selling NFTs directly through Shopify. I think it's still in beta and it's only available to like certain types of accounts. You'd need to read their requirements specifically, but I think essentially it's like you have to be a Shopify Plus store and you have to be in the US so far. And then maybe there's just one more requirement. So at the minimum and at the very basics, you need to qualify for that if you just want to go the easy route and do it with Shopify, which I do recommend because like with all of the hype and interest around this topic, NFTs are still definitely new. It's not in the mass market yet. And your average consumer and your average shopper will not bother with creating a wallet. And like a lot of people are like simply afraid of these wallets and this cryptocurrency, and all of that sounds very risky to your average consumer, I guess, depending on your audience. But on average, I think that's fair. What Shopify does is it allows you to sell NFTs directly through your store and also just accept US dollars for those NFTs and not just cryptocurrency, which is like easing the way for your average consumer a lot. Like if you're super new to this space, you've never done this before, you barely know what NFTs are, definitely go the Shopify route. And other than those requirements that Shopify has for this program, I would say you definitely need to have some sort of audience and community, because I would say that like unless you already have a community and an audience, NFT is not any sort of silver bullet that will take your brand from nowhere or like from a very, very small and not on the map to this like very hyped up brand. At the end of the day, it's the people who are going to respond to what you have to offer, and you need to work with your audience a lot. So like have some sort of an audience, have some followership on Instagram, definitely have a list. I would say like at the minimum 10,000 people on your email list, and then start educating them about this topic. Because again, this is the new grounds for most people. A lot of people see this as risky. Even if they see it as something fun, you'll need to convince them about, why participate in this crazy experiment with you. Just do the work around positioning of however you're going to use this NFT first, and then educate your audience and start with your audience, because they will be the biggest leverage you have for making this successful.
Well, speaking of risky, what would you say are the risks associated with selling NFTs via Shopify?
I guess one of the biggest risks if you do it with Shopify is that it just won't take off, and it won't get a lot of, like, your audience won't resonate with it, and you would end up having wasted resources and time. Yeah, I think that's the biggest risk if you do it with Shopify. Like, it's not the end of the world. I think it's definitely worth it. Like, if you look at all of the big retailers, all of the big brands, they're all actively participating and investing in NFTs. I mentioned Gap, Nike, Adidas. Like, the list is endless, honestly. I've mentioned a few more in my video, and then they're like more and more popping up every day. I think that's a really strong signal that there is some substance, and all of these brands, they're definitely just experimenting and exploring and trying to feel out like where is that space or like that use case where this is going to get the most interest. So if you're a smaller brand, and if you do make it, and if you make some splash even like on social media and get some virality for it, it's going to get picked up. And it's one thing when big brands do this and experiment with this, because obviously they have a lot of money to do that. But when a small brand does it, and if you get any media coverage that will only amplify whatever success you got with your own audience, I would say that the reward is fairly high for you to risk, having lost some money and some time on experimenting with something new.
Okay. With all that in mind, what do you think are the advantages that are available to sellers who get into this game early on?
Well, being early on, whatever, the advantage is of being early on, I guess, like, you get recognized as a leader in your space. You probably build your audience and then kind of expand your audience and become a bigger brand, get more attention. And then, yeah, like, obviously this is a new technology. It's going to develop, it's going to change. But if you're early and you start learning about it now, you will be so much more ahead of all of the other brands. When it does get developed, when there are new things coming up, all of those other brands who haven't experimented with it now will just be learning and just be starting. You will be so much ahead, and that just gives you a lot of competitive advantage, which you can kind of cash in on in the ways of market share or revenue or anything else like that.
Yeah, I think that's an excellent point. Well, I guess you kind of hinted at this before, but I'd still love to get your take. What changes do you foresee taking place in the e-com landscape over the next few years that people should be aware of?
It's a good question. I wish I could predict the future.
Me too.
I would be so rich.
Make it a lot easier.
Well, I think one trend that's definitely going to continue is companies and people being more fussy and strict about privacy. It's something that's already started, a few years ago, where basically privacy concerns are on the rise. Everybody's concerned that the big tech knows so much about us. There are a lot more restrictions now about collecting data, reselling that data, borrowing that data. As a result, for us, marketing is becoming more difficult, harder to measure, and because of that, more expensive. So I would say, as a way to kind of prepare your brand for that, just make sure that you rely on building your own audience. That's another reason why I love email marketing so much, is because with email, you own your audience. When it comes to Facebook or Instagram or TikTok or any other platform, you're building your audience on someone else's platform. And it's great for the time when it's working and when that platform lets you do that. But platforms change rules, as we've seen with Facebook so many times. I think a lot of people got burned with Facebook. They stop existing too at some point. I think, well, Facebook is still relevant, but it's kind of dying, in my opinion. So obviously you need other platforms and they help you a lot, but don't underestimate the value of your own audience. And right now, email addresses and phone numbers is that audience that you can own, and you can do whatever you want with it. And like, email doesn't belong to anybody. Yes, there's Gmail. Yes, there's Yahoo, but the email itself is just email. It's like internet, if email will go away, if the internet goes away. So that's one thing. Focus on collecting what's called zero-party data. It's kind of getting too technical, but essentially, when you do paid advertising online, you're relying on third-party data, essentially Facebook aggregating a bunch of data about people and saying, okay, you can build a segment based on age and shopping preferences and blah, blah, blah. All of that is third-party data. Third-party data is becoming less and less available because of privacy concerns. Zero-party data is information that your audience gives you voluntarily. So if you have a pop-up on your website and you ask people on your site for their email address, and then you ask them something else, like you ask for the email address, and then you're like, are you shopping for yourself or for someone else? If that's relevant for your brand, or what kind of problem are you looking a solution for? If, let's say, like, you sell, right now we're working with this brand that sells wearable sleeves that help with arthritis and other chronic conditions. So when somebody gives you that information voluntarily, they click an option in the pop-up, they gave you that info. That is zero-party data. It's the most reliable data you can have. And then you can use that in your analytics and understanding what is the biggest chunk of your audience, what they're interested in, who else you should go after, like in terms of new audience. So that zero-party data is the most valuable information you can get. Focus on that. So that's when it comes to privacy stuff. The other big one is, of course, all of this NFT stuff and Web3 in general. Again, it's just like a whole new big topic, but essentially the internet is changing very rapidly now. We've been in what's called Web2 stage of internet development. Now we're moving into Web3, where things are more interactive, things are more 3D, the same metaverse we kind of touched upon. So as more and more people spend time in that digital world, and less time in the physical world, likely. I don't know what's like the horizon in terms of the number of years, how far we're from that. But as people spend less time in the physical world and more time in the digital world, how will that change e-commerce? I'm very interested. Kind of sounds like we'll need less stuff in the physical space and more stuff in the digital space. So I would be looking into that direction, at least kind of inquiring and being curious about it. Yeah, those are the two big vectors that I see. And then, obviously, now, we're speaking in April 2022, things are very unsettling, I would say, in the world, in terms of economy, in terms of the political situation in the world. So all of that in general is just so uncertain. A lot of people are predicting that things are not going to look good in general for a lot of people. But I don't know how to make plans based on that. That's just very depressing.
Yeah. Well, it's back to your original point. Like, I really wish that I could tell the future and I had a crystal ball. It would be
Yeah.
very nice right now in light of, I think, everything we've just come through during the pandemic and now
Yeah,
everything going on. It's like, oh, all right. Yeah,
I know.
future telling skills would be super good right now. But everything you said, I think, was really great advice. I like that it's a nice pivot and looking forward to the future of what's possible beyond just ecom. We're looking at what the internet is doing, how to incorporate that into your business, and hopefully kind of using that as maybe a little bit of like a ray of hope for the development of the online world to kind of get us through what's going on in the real world at this time.
Yeah.
So I'm curious, you've helped so many sellers achieve success in ecom. Have you ever been tempted to put your skills to the test and create a store of your own?
For sure. I've been thinking about that for a long time. I was very tempted. It just sounds like such a fun journey. And I've gone through a few different ideas for my own store. And then most recently, maybe like a few months ago, I actually came to a realization that I don't want to have an e-commerce store. And it was very liberating because I was working with all of these brands. And I was like, why don't I have an e-commerce store? This sounds like such a great business. But I think in reality, I'm somewhat on the inside, right? Because we work very closely with all of the brands we work with, and we're sort of like their external team that fully owns one of their marketing channels. So I get some of the insider view. But even for me, like, just sounds all super exciting. It's a pretty straightforward business. But then if you think about it, it has a lot of logistics because, again, you're moving physical goods through the physical world. And with all of the restrictions and sanctions and delays that happened with COVID, and who knows what else happens, all of that delays your shipments. It can delay your production if your production happens in an area where there is unrest or COVID or anything like that. So there are just so many like uncertain things. And also, it's definitely a scalable business, but it's a business where every product has a cost. Unlike in a fully digital world in B2B, when you sell apps or anything like that, you create a product once and then you improve it and use every copy virtually, has zero cost after it's already created. With e-commerce, like, you still have to pay for every single product that you then sell to your people. So once I kind of thought more about it, it actually sounds like a really difficult business. So I truly admire all of the founders and the teams that are making it happen and, making a lot of people happy because people love all of these fun products that they get through different brands, but it's a lot of hard work. And running an agency is a lot of hard work too. So if I start another business, at least in some foreseeable future, it has to be a business that's not as hard. I mean, all businesses are hard, of course. But yeah, that's kind of my most recent thoughts and why I decided that I'll probably, if and when I start another business, I want to focus on something that's fully online.
I like that. I mean, I don't think I've had the deep realization that you had, but I remember when I first joined Empire Flippers and, learning about all the different monetizations, I was like, yeah, if I were to pick one, it'd be Amazon FBA. And then over time, not to say that it's not a great business, but it just was the realization that, oh, all those logistics, they might be difficult to deal with.
Yeah.
Maybe not. Awesome. Well, so this has been a lot of fun, Kasey, going through your journey. I think it's really cool to talk about NFTs and how they're emerging on different e-commerce platforms. I think this is going to be a really fun one. So thank you so much for sharing all that.
Thank you.
Yeah, I would love to wrap this up with just our traditional rapid fire questions. If you're cool with that, I can kick off the first one.
Let's go. Sure.
Awesome. So what would you say are the best hidden growth opportunities within Shopify?
I would say that is the NFTs. It's kind of hidden, to be honest, because Shopify offers this program where you can mint and sell NFTs directly through Shopify. Not a lot of people know about that. So it's very well hidden. And it's also one of the best opportunities for growth right now. Everything, obviously, there are lots of other different opportunities for growth. I just don't think they're that hidden. Like Google, like how to grow in Shopify, and you'll get 15 different ideas. So that would be my answer.
Yeah, no, I think that's a very good point. What tools or resources can help people to optimize their Shopify stores?
Well, that's like such a wide question, right? Because you can optimize so many different aspects of your store. Since I'm most familiar with email and SMS, I'm going to focus on that. Apart from the email platform that you choose to do your email and stuff like that, there are some, I would call them inspirational resources that not a lot of people know about. So the first one is reallygoodemails.com. That one is fairly popular. Everybody knows about reallygoodemails.com. So if you just want to see what other brands are doing and get ideas for email and SMS, well, mostly email content, go there. But then two others that I really like are milled.com. Milled.com, you can search for any brand that comes to your mind and you will see all of their emails in chronological order. So really good for some competition research and spying on other brands. And then my favorite is mailcharts.com. And that is similar to Milled, except in addition to seeing all of the brand's emails, you also see their automations, like their journeys or their flows. And then MailCharts also compiles some basically sending data and the subject lines that that brand uses and how often they run promotions and how that's different from the previous period you're comparing it to, and then what days they mostly send on, and a lot of data like that. So that one is really, really good for competition research.
That's a really cool resource. Actually, I haven't heard about that one. So thank you. Thank you for sharing that. And finally, what has been your funniest moment working within e-commerce?
It's one of the most challenging questions here, even though it's the least technical or anything like that. But we definitely have a lot of fun on our team in Slack. We're fully remote, but we all hang out in Slack and just, as I said, email might seem like an unsexy channel, but actually there is a lot in email marketing, and just kind of watching what's going on in the space and then noticing some things and just having fun with each other. That's fun. And then I guess, I reflect a lot back on how I started Luck & Co. and when I started it. And I started it in January of 2020. Right before that, I was doing a lot of event marketing. It just so happened. And January 2020 was when I decided, okay, I'm giving this a go. I'm going to try to do this e-commerce thing and then say no to everything else. And I was just kind of keeping a few of my event marketing clients, just because I needed to pay my bills. And then I got my first two clients in e-commerce on the same day in March of 2020, right when the pandemic started. And then all of the events that I was helping market, they got canceled. And then e-commerce took off that month forward. Wow. And I was like, what a beautiful timing. The universe is really helping with my idea here. Obviously, it was a really tough time for everybody, but e-commerce was that one industry that really thrived during the pandemic.
Right.
And I don't know how it happened that I decided to make that shift exactly then. I don't know if it's funny or not, but it's definitely very interesting.
Oh, I mean, I do think it's an interesting coincidence, and to hear so many people who come on the podcast and talk about what happened to them in March 2020, what was the shift. And I love that it kind of ushered you into a new chapter where it would have been really easy to kind of take your time and maybe dip your toes into those waters. And then I think life kind of threw you something that said, nope, you're going to dive into those waters.
Yeah. 100%.
Yeah, that's how it's going to be. But so many people who've come on this podcast were kind of in the same boat. I love hearing the different variations of what that looks like for people. Well, cool. Kasey, this has been awesome to hear about everything you're doing, getting an inside look at an element of Shopify and NFTs that, people don't really know about. So thank you so much for sharing your knowledge with our audience today.
Thank you so much for having me, Sarah. This was so much fun. I absolutely loved it. So thank you.
Yeah. If people want to find you, reach out to you, where can they find you?
So as I mentioned, they can find me on YouTube. Just search for Kasey with a K, Kasey Luck, and luck as in luck, Luck. And you should see my videos there. And then I'm also on Twitter. I'm not the best Twitter, but I try. You can find me there. And then I'm also on LinkedIn. And from time to time, I get into these stages where I post a bunch of content, again, just as an effort to help out all of the e-commerce brands who we can help with our services. So I try to post examples of our A/B tests and stuff that can be valuable to other founders and other brands. So find me on LinkedIn as well. Oh, and of course, there's our website, luckandco.agency.
Awesome. Well, great. Well, I'm excited to see how our audience takes it to this one. And for the people out there curious to learn more, I hope they reach out to you. It seems like you are a wealth of knowledge. So thank you again for sharing that all with us today.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in. I hope you've walked away with a bit of new insight that'll help you in your digital entrepreneurship journey. If you enjoyed this episode and you'd like to help support the podcast, please share it with others, post about it on social media, or leave a rating review. To learn more about businesses available for sale at Empire Flippers, click the link in the description or visit empireflippers.com/marketplace. Thanks again, and I'll see you next time.